So, Michelle,
Yeah.
last week, I am ashamed to admit that I did not start the show by saying, so, Michelle,
It's
um, which
okay.
is what people are waiting for. They're waiting for me to go, so, Michelle. Uh, but, so right before we started recording this one, I was talking to somebody about doing something. I'm keeping it vague just to be
Mhm.
polite,
Mhm.
about doing something professionally. And they asked me if I would do it and, how much I would charge. And then they were like, would you take marijuana or tea in a trade? And it just made me think, like, and this is a pretty vague question, but like, what's the dumbest thing? Just the dumbest thing you've been a party to, just that was so stupid. Like, has anybody ever made you an offer that they thought in any way in life that was just so dumb? Because like I've I can't even tell you how many times people have offered me marijuana. I'm sorry, I'm a straight arrow. I don't use marijuana, so it has no value to me. But like, it's just, would you take marijuana? It's like, no, I will take cash.
Mhm.
Well, actually, no, I
Yeah.
won't take cash. I will take money digitally transferred to me.
Mhm.
But I'm just wondering if you have a memory of just the dumbest, because sometimes some things are so dumb. Oh, sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, you can continue to talk.
Oh, I was just thinking. No, I'm just like thinking back to like when I used to play shows and just the dumbest things. I mean, just like there are just moments where people really think that because people bitch about exposure.
Mhm.
And I understand that. Like, if you're a graphic designer and someone comes to you and says, hey, will you graphic design my poster for an event that doesn't relate to you in any way? Like, it's just for me, it'll be good exposure for you. That's a load of bullshit. Like,
Mhm.
no one's
Mhm.
going to be like, wow, who designed that poster? Probably. Very
Yeah.
unlikely.
Yeah.
But if, and I think you've done this, like, if they said like, hey, we're doing a show and you're playing it, would you like to do the poster? That does benefit you
Mhm.
because you're on the show.
Yeah.
So you get to put a little extra you into it, and it's no harm. I built my entire career by working for free for like a decade, and I still occasionally work for free for people.
Mhm.
So I've never been annoyed by exposure when it makes sense, like when it's like, hey, will you work on this project? It's got national distribution and I need like 3 hours of your time. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, well, when? And then they're like, oh, it's on some random Saturday. I'm like, okay. It only benefits me, um
Right.
but I've had people come to me and be like, hey, will you direct a segment in this movie that I want to make with like 4 or 5 other directors? And I'm like, what's the budget? And they're like, oh, well, we would do a Kickstarter to raise the budget. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me know when the Kickstarter's over what you want to budget it. And I'll get involved. And they're like, oh, well, we want you to promote the Kickstarter. and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
I'm like, so you want me to do all the work to raise the money that is going to be that the money that you were going to pay me, I will obtain, but then
Yeah.
I won't get
Yeah.
to have the movie.
Yeah.
It's like that's worse than Mary Kay, man.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just thinking about, like, because this made me think of this moment with this guy, just made me think of all of the bad offers, because there are plenty of them that I've gotten in my life. Because I'm not afraid to say that, like, I often will work cheaper if something amuses me. Like, often. And do you remember one time I was hired to do a music video, and they were like going to pay me. This was about 7 years ago, so I didn't have the 6 years of working full time behind me. But they were going to
Right.
give me like $100 to make a whole ass music video, including like the special effects and stuff.
Mhm.
So I was going to get to keep like none of it, or maybe $50 or maybe $20 or something. But
Yeah.
the big selling point was that I had creative freedom.
Mhm.
I There is no shittier selling point than creative freedom, because the moment you promise it, I am positive you will not give it over. That's the big thing. Because they're like, and the best part is you can do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, because I mean, I make movies now and I do whatever I want. So so I made the mistake, because I was friendly with those people, of really thinking about it and thinking like, well, what would make this fun to me? And I came up with a concept I thought was really fun. And I was like, okay, now I really want to do this. It'll be interesting. And then I tell them what we're going to do. And they're like, we don't like that. And I was like, what? we don't like that though. We don't like that.
That's not what freedom we were talking about. So.
We were talking about freedom like in the American sense. You have the freedom to choose what we give you. But like, I remember that was so weird, because then I wrote him back and I said, okay, if you don't want to use my concept, then I guess I will no longer be writing this, because that's my concept. And since I won't be having the creative freedom of writing it, then I would like $550 and I'll need to see the script. And then they just ghosted me. So. Yeah. Because it's like, first of all, because that's the other thing. Oh man, bands are the worst. And this guy, I'm laughing at. He's in a band, and but like bands are the worst, because they'll be like, "Dude, we want you to make us a music video. It's gonna be boss." And I'm like, "Oh, cool, yeah. So what do you have in mind?" And like, I don't know. Like, what do you want to? What do you think? And I'm like, so I gotta conceptualize your music video, write it, make sure you guys like it, find the locations, find all of the situation, then also show up and film it and make sure it's all to your specification for like $200.
Yeah.
Or even $400 isn't very much for that much work. I always try to explain to them, I'm like, okay, if I'll be like, what's your budget? And if they're like, our budget's like $300, I'm like, okay, well then that buys you come up with everything we're going to film, and I show up and film for 5 hours. I will film whatever you want for 5 hours, try to get your band playing, or, for the whatever. And then I will go home and edit it that night. And then you will watch it, and then you will give me one revision of what you want changed, and then we're done. Like, that's what you get for that amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not trying to, and it's funny because they'll act like I'm being difficult. I'm like, no. I could have just told you, fuck you. You can't afford me. What I was saying is, here's how I can do what you're asking for the price you can afford. I'm actually trying to be helpful. I mean, there are jobs where people will be like, man, we really want you to do this music video and it's going to be so cool and blah, 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 blah. We haven't written anything down yet, not even in this message to you, but it's going to be really good. So then I just go, that's awesome. And they're like, so what would it cost? And I'm like, $11,000. And they're like, okay, well, we'll look into, we'll be in touch. Like, my work here is done. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I haven't had to do a lot of commercials. I haven't had to do a lot of music videos. I've shot I've shot 3 weddings ever. And they were always for friends. Like, it wasn't because I was out there shooting weddings. Somebody just said like, hey, could you shoot this wedding? And it was always when I really could use, twice it was when I could really use some money. Oh, no. Hold on. I'm remembering it wrong. Oh, man, it's worse than this. So once it was because I could really use the money and it was a friend of a friend. And then once it was because it was a favor from my mother. My mother had a friend who really wanted a great wedding video. So my mother got me to do it gratis, but it was as a favor to my mother. I would do anything for my mother, that way it would be cheaper for her. But they were like, well, we appreciate getting a free wedding video so much. We will tip him. We will definitely give him a tip. They never did tip me.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then I edited their wedding video immediately and gave them a DVD. And 5 weeks later, from 2 weeks after the wedding, they said the disc doesn't play. And I'm like, it took you 5 weeks to pop it in the DVD player. So I had to burn them another copy. And they never did tip me. So I didn't get a single penny for that. And then the other one was a brother. Well, I mean, he's a friend of mine, but he was a brother of a guy I work with all the time on movies, who is a very good guy. He needed a wedding video and he didn't have a ton of money to work with, and he was a pal. So I went and did it. And that one was fun.
Good.
I mean, because I knew everybody, I was comfortable enough to like try to make a cool wedding video as opposed to just like hanging back and not knowing anybody and just like filming. I knew him, and like, you know, he would encourage me to like sit and eat with everybody and come and sit down with him, you know, and stuff like that. Cause I was like kind of a guest as well, which is way preferable.
Yeah.
But so I've been very fortunate. I haven't had to do a lot of those. In the early days when I was working for myself, commercial work was like a huge win. It was very often what would help me make my way. But now it's just like, like if a friend has a business and they need a commercial, I'm in. It's kind of like photography. I was trying to be like to make money photographing people. And now I'm like, do you know someone I know? Cause otherwise I'm not taking your fucking picture. like, do you know somebody? Like I have one real estate company that I take their headshots cause he's a good guy. And that's it. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
So it's just, but it's amazing. Like, it's just amazing because like, okay, so photography is a good example. There's a thing called TFP, which is originally was called Time for Prints, was what it stood for back in the old days. But what it basically means is if you're a photographer, you say it's not, hey, come and work for free. It's TFP. It's your time in exchange for prints of the photos of you that I take for your portfolio.
Sure.
So then it became Time for Portfolio is what people call it now because it's digital. But, you know, so in a lot of great models, I've taken pictures of them. And the whole point was they really wanted those pictures of themselves to exist to show how good of a model they are. And I really wanted to take pictures of them as a model. So that's a beautiful, simpatico thing versus, you know, when somebody you don't know wants you to take really good pictures of them. So you're like, I need a little bit of money. And then they're like, no problem. And then they almost always cancel. So I've started.
They forget they don't have any money.
Well, it's gotten to the point now where like I just take a deposit because that last one that canceled, they were like, "Is there any way to get my deposit back?" And I was like, "No, the whole point of having a deposit." And well, you know, I wouldn't have been so mean, but she had to do the thing where she mentioned that the reason she was canceling was because her friend was going to take them for free. And I was like, "Well, then, fuck yourself." Like,
yeah,
you know, like. If you hadn't mentioned that, I probably would have given her her deposit back. But when she said that, I was like, oh, well, then you don't need this money. I'm going to keep it. Because the whole point of a deposit is, you know, to not waste my time. So, and I take a deposit on like anything I do that isn't a really good friend. So we'll see what happens. I wonder if that guy's responded. I almost want to like check. He hasn't.
Okay, that's good.
He hasn't at all. Well, I asked for money, so he's probably like, that's the other thing. Do people not understand that that you can counter an offer? Like, no, please, you were going to say something.
I don't know.
Well, no, okay, so one of the biggest lessons that okay, let's talk about school. Let's talk about when we were in like middle school and high school, okay?
Okay.
Did you ever have a career development class?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, you had 2 years less of high school, or 2 years more of high school than me, so there's more to forget. But, but no, we had some classes that were half semester classes, quarter classes. And they were usually classes that, in my opinion, mattered like way more than arithmetic. Like it'd be like, okay, so you're going to spend a whole half a year on on advanced arithmetic that you'll never, or geometry, which you'll like never really use. But we're gonna give you 8 weeks on how to type. We're gonna give you 8 weeks on how to make a resume and how to pay and how to write a check. And it's like, I feel like that, because that's the only, literally, when I think back to school, the only thing I think of like in life that gets me by is I remember writing a resume. Which I learned in career development in, I think that in 9th grade. And I remember how to write a check because I occasionally need to write a check. I didn't even learn how to write a check in a class. When I was in elementary school, my elementary school teacher, we had money, class money that you would get for like good grades. You get $4 bucks. I forget what they called them, pirate dollars or whatever, because my school with pirates.
Okay.
Yeah, because they called them they called them Buccaneer Bucks in middle school, but because we were the pirates, who are not good people. Pirates are very bad people. And then our greatest rival was the town over were the Vikings, which are also really bad people.
But different ones.
But both on boats, so sworn enemies.
Yeah.
But anyway, so so in that class that I had in elementary school, the teacher decided, and this was the teacher's decision, it was not a school-wide thing. She decided, because she was a very good teacher, that you're not allowed to keep the cash. Like the bucks you get, you have a account, like a bank account, checking account, and you give the money to the teacher, and the teacher marks the ledger, and then you have to keep a ledger on your checkbook. And she made us a little stapled checkbook. And anytime you wanted to buy like a pencil or whatever was in the little school store, you had to write a check and then balance your checkbook.
Okay, cool.
And I completely fucking learned how to write a check and balance a checkbook from that.
Cool.
That wasn't even in career development. And I learned how to write a letter in career development. You put the fuck person's name in the middle, and then you put your fucking shit in the top left, and then there you put a stamp somewhere. I forget where. You put it on there. It's fine.
Yeah,
it'll get there.
They'll figure it out. It's a stamp.
And it works on a potato. You can just write your name in the middle of the potato, return address, and put a stamp. That's true. You can just put stamps on potatoes and mail them. I'm gonna mail you a potato.
Okay. Could you mail me a nice potato?
Like a good bacon potato, like baking potato.
I don't want a russet potato because I don't really like them, but I eat them a lot. I want like one of the gold potatoes.
Oh, Yukon Gold? Those are so small.
Then find a big one.
Jesus Christ, Henrik, do I have to do everything for you? But no, so so career development, where I learned the only other thing that they taught me in that class that was super valuable. They taught me not how to network, but they taught me that networking was a thing. They explained that, like, if you're at a party and you meet somebody and they're nice to you and you're nice to them and they own a factory, you might one day need that factory, or you might get a chance to work there. So you keep their phone number and you can give them a call. And that was a very valuable lesson. So that was entirely what I learned, and none of it was in any of the main classes.
Yeah. The way my school was set up is like there weren't classes like that, but there might have been. No, I don't know how that works, but I did have one just during regular like math class. We had like I guess part of a unit on like writing checks and balancing checkbooks and stuff. I don't know when that was, maybe upper elementary school, maybe middle school. And then I also, like, in one of the like language arts classes we did
letters.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
I like, because when you said unit, all I could think of was like that they're an absolute unit. Just like a real buff dude. Oh, the internet's ruined me. Memes have ruined.
I'm sorry.
It's just like, no, well, really, they've enriched everything, but it's just like the fact that I hear unit and I just think like he's an absolute unit. And it's like, I saw a meme the other day that was just this big dog, and it had a doggy door wrapped around its shoulders, but it had the whole door. It was just walking around with the whole door on it.
Oh, I saw that dog, yeah.
It's just like, this chunky boy proves he's an absolute unit.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yes. But so would you say that was the most valuable thing you learned in school, though, is like how to balance a checkbook, or do you have a memory of something that you actually went, holy crap, this was useful?
I don't really know, honestly. I did have we had like kind of like a home economic stuff, so we learned like sewing and cooking, and I know when to flip over a pancake. I still remember that.
I dropped out before home ec.
Oh, that was fun. I mean, it wasn't really fun because I had to do it with other kids and it was terrible, but besides that part that I had to be in a class with people and they had to work with me, it was nice making pancakes and stuff.
That's good. No, I think home economics would be super useful if it could teach you how to sew a pocket, or sew a seam or whatever, I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I was just gonna say, yeah, we learned how to use a sewing machine and all that kind of stuff.
See, I would like that. I would like to have
Yeah.
learned that stuff. I dropped it. Home economics started junior year in my high school.
That's interesting. We had those classes for us in middle school.
Huh.
So,
See,
yeah.
in my school, it was almost like the way I understand college to be.
Mhm.
Like, it's like all the bullshit prerequisite stuff was the first 2 years, and then you started getting like wood shop and metal shop and home ec and stuff in the last
Okay.
2 years. You started getting
Okay.
the stuff that was kind of more fun, maybe, or at least different.
Mhm.
It wasn't just geometry and algebra.
Did you like not have like electives then
Um,
during the first 2 years, or
well,
you didn't?
we had electives. Like, I had orchestra. I was in orchestra. I don't know what
Mhm.
the other electives were because I was very good at orchestra.
Mhm.
So I just always chose orchestra because it gave me 2 credits.
Yeah.
And because we were an award-winning orchestra, so like it was just like that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Orchestra was an amazing class because the teacher was so stupid. And I would not be this mean, but I hate her because she was very mean. But she did the dumbest thing ever, which is she stands in front of the class and lays out the mathematics of our grades. So she explains, like, well, for attending class, you get 50%,
Mhm.
for attending. Then for attending our performances, which are very important to the thing, the attendance of the performances is like 30% of your grade. So you're already almost at like, you're at like, or not 30, 20%, sorry.
So you're at
So you're at like
70.
70% just for attendance.
So you wouldn't even have to do anything else. I get to see.
Actually, holy shit. Now that I think about it, I am almost almost certain that we got to 75% or 80% grades just for attendance of the concerts and the regular
Wow.
attendance, because then the rest were what were called pass-offs, which is where they give you a piece of music and you have to practice it and then play it for a tape recorder and give it to the teacher and she passes you.
Okay. Okay.
I hated doing pass-offs because it was annoying to take it. You had to practice. I was totally okay being a second violin and barely, being noticed because I could play by ear. So
Mhm.
at one point the teacher was like, are you not, like, you haven't done any pass-offs? And I was like, I'm never going to do pass-offs. And she was like, but then your grade can only be like a C+. And I was like, yeah. All right. That's what I'm talking about. And she hated me when she figured out that I just made that decision with the mathematics.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally like a gym class. You show up and you don't take a shit on the floor and you're going to get a B. Like, so, but yeah, so I hated that teacher because she was very mean. She'd yell a lot.
Oh.
Well, we were kids, man. Like, and the worst part is, like, we had, so this is gonna make me look so bad. I should not be talking about my time in orchestra. There were some really talented kids in that orchestra, like really talented.
Mhm.
And the thing is, like, 2 of the kids that were the most talented were like my buddies, and they did not care at all about orchestra, but they were really good.
Mm-hmm.
So they would get first chair like that. In fact, we used to get frustrated because sometimes they would get first chair, but I would get like third chair, so I wouldn't be able to sit behind them to talk to them during class. It'd be like, damn it, I should have whiffed it. But there were these kids in the class who worked really, really hard, and they never beat those guys for first and second chair. And they were this is why I said it was going to make me sound terrible. They were not nice people. They were very rude and very like, I'm better than, they were very what you would expect orchestra people to be like. They were, very uppity and all this stuff. And I remember just being so satisfied when they would like walk out of the room crying when they found out what their placement was in the orchestra. It was so satisfying as a kid because they would always snub their nose at you for like wearing a goofy t-shirt, and they'd be like, you need to take this seriously. Do you even have rosin for your bow? Do you need me to explain what rosin is? And I'm just sitting here like, my buddy who doesn't practice it, I'll beat you for first chair, and you're crying in front of everybody. We won't forget. I still don't forget that.
Apparently.
I know that's terrible, but I just remember that was one of the few times in high school somebody who was mean got comeuppance. I do feel bad, like remembering them just sitting in the chair crying after they found out that they got second chair, and or first chair, but in the second violins, not first chair in the first violins. And they're crying, and I'm just like, guess you should have been nicer, because then I would be like, I'm sorry you're sad. But instead I'm like, yosh.
It's just like, I mean, I kind of like, I'm sure that they had I'm sure one of the reasons they were acting out so much is that they just had so much, jealousy and pressure directed at them. But probably both of them.
I'm sure that they had pressure from their parents because they were all like high grade students, high GPA students. So I'm sure they had a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. I actually ran into one of them with my car. About a few years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I ran into one because they were at a birthday party of a mutual friend that I still had from high school at a bowling alley. And you know what? She was still a jerk. I'm sorry. Like, I've had bullies from when I was growing up write me nice messages about how they are so sorry that they were bullies. This girl was still a pain in the ass. You know what she did? We were at a bowling alley full of friends, mostly friends who maybe hadn't seen each other since high school, which was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. She would bowl and then go sit in the back and read a book.
Oh.
Like, that's shitty. Like, we're all trying to like hang out, and I know she can be social because I grew up around her. Mm-hmm. She's just better than us. I'm a bad person, and the more I talk about this, I'm making myself look worse because I even made fun of her to her face for reading a book instead of hanging out with everybody.
Maybe she has issues being social now that she didn't have issues in the past.
Then get on medicine. You're an adult. Like, I'm joking.
Jeez.
No, I'm joking. But no, it was just weird.
It's a little weird.
Well, I mean, it was just like, we're all hanging out, and it's like, you're talking about a big group of people who were all weirdos in high school who all, because I didn't have a lot of friends in high school, so my friends were weirdos like me. And she just sits there reading a book. And I remember I sat next to her and I said, hey, how's that book? Is it exciting? Is it interesting? Is it full of colorful characters and interesting things that are happening? And I was like, because if it isn't, literally where we are is. That's what I said to her. And she just kind of went, ha. And I was like, whatever. I'm glad to know that your life isn't amounting to as much as you thought it was going to. See, I'm making myself look so terrible.
What are you doing? Stop.
Okay, well, I'll finish with this. The other girl who was really mean in that class was a year ahead of me, and she went to prison because she became a teacher and slept with a student.
Oh, man.
She got what she deserved. I don't know. No, but it's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, though. Everything I'm mentioning, by the way, like the schadenfreude of being a kid and being like, haha, you're crying, you were so mean. That's from a kid's perspective. I mean, where I didn't have as much empathy as I do now. Now, when I look back, I more laugh at the fact that I was so amused uncomfortably, I guess is the only way to put it. Like, I'm like, oh, I was glad that she was crying. Oh, fuck. What? Why are you looking at me like that?
I have never, I don't want, no, I'm done.
No, what?
No, I just like, I don't have that reference point to go back to because
Sure.
I don't have that person, got what they deserve. They're crying. I'm super happy about it. I just don't have that. I have a lot of that person was crying, but I don't have anything.
No, I mean, it's better that you don't. I mean, I'm not proud of the fact that I dislike that person so much, but I do remember like week in, week out being made to feel lesser. It didn't help to be one of the poorer kids who grew up poor. around someone with like nice clothes and two parents and everything like that. It's not fun being looked down upon. An
Yeah,
orchestra was not a place for kids like me. It was a place for kids like her.
yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
other thing.
Yeah. It sounds a whole lot like
Lord of the Flies.
assassination. No, it sounds like Assassination Classroom.
Michelle, I'm tired of you exclaiming that everything is like Assassination Classroom. That's just your go-to at this point.
I'm sorry, just everything is like Assassination Classroom.
Oh gosh. I'm sure that those people hated me and my friends too, because we were in there for easy credit. So
And they worked really hard.
they did. Well, my attitude is if you're not smart enough to know that your hard work is not going to be rewarded, then it's your own fault. What I mean is high school doesn't matter. That's what I mean. What I mean is if you're not smart enough to understand that high school doesn't matter, I guess, is the way I meant that.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I don't know how it was where you grew up, but like it was drilled pretty deep into us that high school totally mattered.
Oh, no, it was.
So it's I mean, you have to, I don't know people who can tell you that high school doesn't matter, because there was no real internet that could be like, high school doesn't matter. It's okay, Michelle. Like,
I would have told you that via AIM if we had been friends then.
Yeah. Did I even I didn't I don't think I instant messaged my people in high school.
That's weird.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe.
I mean, because you're like just a year older than me, right?
No, I'm like 2 years older than you. Maybe.
I mean, because I was instant messaging by the time I was 13.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that. I don't think.
That's your problem. We found it, folks. We found the problem.
Yeah, I'm honestly just not sure. Everything just kind of runs together a little. So
yeah. Well, I will say, because you mentioned where you were, everybody pounded your head that high school mattered very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
That was not different where I was. In fact, my mother didn't pound it into my head as hard as everything else around me did. Mm-hmm. When I was 16, almost 17, and so I didn't just flat out drop out of high school. I started out by leaving my high school and being home educated. But as we continued on doing that, it was like, let's be real. I just want out of school. That's what it came down to. I don't want to be doing this. I want to do what I want to do. And the girlfriend I had at the time, who was from a pretty well-to-do family, she literally told me she literally asked me if I wanted to throw my life away when I said I was going to drop out of high school. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? People drop out of high school all the time. And she was like, well, are you going to get your GED? And I was like, I don't fucking know. I'm so glad that I'm 34 and successful now, because now I can really laugh in people's faces when they go but you got your GED. And I can be like, no. It's one of my favorite things to do. I think I've probably done it to you, because I do it to my friends. Is I'll talk about my friends in front of about them in front of them to other people, and I'll be like, where you really fucked up is you didn't drop out of high school, and now you can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we talked about this, and I really can't go back, because you could always go back to high school if you wanted to.
Yeah, I can always go back.
No.
But you forever graduated from high school.
Fuck.
I mean, unless you fake your own death and start a new identity and then say, I dropped out of high school. But then when they check your fingerprints, they'll be like, oh, she actually did graduate from high school.
Yeah, they're going to find out. What if I burn my fingerprints off? I had a terrible accident, and so I don't have any hands at all anymore.
You don't have any hands at all?
No, they're gone.
That escalated so quickly from what if I burn off my fingerprints to what if my hands are completely burned off in a horrible accident.
I just like that one better. So they can't find out because I don't have any fingerprints anymore. Because I don't have any hands.
But then they'll be like, we need to sign you up for disability. And you'll be like, fuck, I don't have a social security number.
No, I don't have to sign up for disability. I'll figure it out. Like I'll use like we can attach like I'll get fake hands or I can attach a pen to my elbow. It'll be fun.
What job would you do exclusively with a pen attached to one of your elbows?
I don't know, like something where you like data entry.
Michelle, as someone who dropped out of high school, I'm starting to think you didn't think your future out very well.